First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I know we've had one from Peter Jones, haven't we, Emily?
That's correct. We've had apologies from Peter Jones, and if I could just do a quick roll call, please, Chair.
Okay.
Councillors today, Councillor Chris Holly.
Present.
Councillor Peter Black.
I'm here.
Councillor Paxton Hood-Williams.
Present also.
Councillor Linda James.
Present.
Councillor Mary Jones.
Present.
Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yes, here.
Councillor Irene Mann. Councillor Bridget Rowlands.
Present, Emily.
Councillor Des Thomas. Okay, Councillor Philip Downing.
Present.
And the invited officers and cabinet members today, Councillor Andrea Lewis.
Present.
Mark Wade.
Present.
And David Mayrick.
Present.
Thank you. Is there anybody here I've not called today? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the disclosure of personal and prejudicial interests. Members first? No? Okay. Officers? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Next item is item 3 is the prohibition of whip notes and declarations of party whips. Okay, right. Next item, minutes of the previous meeting. I'm hoping all of you have studied them. And any issues? Page 1. Page 2. And page 3. All okay with them? All right?
Yes,
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. Thank you. Right. We have no public questions, which is item 5 on the agenda. Item 6 is the Welsh Housing Quality Standard Annual Update. I'm assuming the Cabinet Member, Andrea, welcome to the Scrutiny Board. You will take us through it initially.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Holly, and thank you to the committee for the invitation. I don't intend on referring to the report. Dave Mayrick's going to take us through that in more detail. But just to give a very brief overview, I'm sure that members will appreciate that the last 14 months particularly have been very challenging, and particularly at the start of the pandemic, where we had to follow the restrictions, especially in terms of the internal works for the protection of tenants and the protection of the workforce. And so we adhered to the rules. During that period, we did actually carry out emergency repair work that was needed as and when required. And it's credit to the workforce that they did it sympathetically and carefully, considering tenants' wishes, to make sure that they felt safe and secure during any such works being carried out. So this, at the start of the 14-month period, did set us back in terms of achieving some of our targets. And I know members will recognise that Welsh Government have extended our deadline by a further year to reflect this. But I just wanted to pay credit to everybody that we've employed and the way that they've worked in tenants' homes and respected tenants' safety and tenants' distance. And, it's been incredible, actually. And there has been quite an element of catch-up in the times that we were able to carry on with kitchens and bathrooms particularly. I won't say more than that, but just to pay credit to our workforce and everybody involved that have pulled together and worked very, very well, incredibly well during these very challenging times. So with that, Chair, I'll hand over to Dave Mayrick and to Mark Wade.
Okay, thank you very much. Mark or Dave, which one wants to go first?
If I may, I'll make a start.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Can I first of all just give a little bit of background and context to what Welsh Housing Quality Standard programme actually is, just for a little bit of background. It was introduced by the Welsh Government back in 2002 with the objective of trying to raise the standard of social housing across Wales, and it applies to all landlords across Wales. It embraces a large number of legal and regulatory obligations, Housing Act 2014, the Standard Guidance from 2008, Fire Safety Order 2005, gas regulations, electric regulations, asbestos regulations, building regulations, and housing health and safety rating system, just to name a few. So there's a lot of statutory obligations that we need to meet as a part of the programme. As Councillor Lewis mentioned, the original date for compliance was the 31st December 2020. That date has now been extended. Now, the actual Welsh Housing Quality Standard itself fits in with a number of corporate priorities that we have as a local authority. Housing plays a significant role in helping to meet the council's vision and priorities for Swansea. It's got proven links to improving public health, resident well-being, and reducing poverty by driving down energy bills. The £500 million plus investment in the Welsh Housing programme over the last 18 years has also given a big economic impact to the locality in the creation of jobs and training and employment opportunities for people in the supply chain as well. We've adopted the principles of Beyond Bricks and Mortar, which has helped us to target training and opportunities to people living in the communities where the work is actually being carried out. So, reporting of the Welsh Housing Quality Standard progress, we've got a duty every year to compile statistics and return them to Welsh Government, generally in August of each year, of the previous year's progress of our capital programmes and how we're getting on with meeting our obligations. Those statistical returns are then presented here at Scrutiny panel, and we also provide them to Council as a part of our 4-year capital programme that we take to Council each March to set out what our future repair, maintenance, improvement programmes are going to be. Now, the normal reporting cycles have been impacted by COVID. Welsh Government suspended all statistical monitoring during 2020. So instead of reporting to you on a 12-month basis now, we're reporting to you for a period of 21 months, April 2019 through to December 2020 inclusive. As Councillor Lewis mentioned, the COVID pandemic also impacted on our ability to deliver our work programme during 2020. It wasn't just this authority, it was authorities up and down the land. And Welsh Government recognised that, and the Minister for Housing and Local Government gave us an extension of time of 12 months to meet the compliance period. The new deadline is now the 31st of December 2021, the end of this calendar year. On to point 3 in the report, and that's how we measure the Welsh Housing Quality Standard. Obviously, to meet the objectives of improving the standard of housing that we have, Welsh Government set out in its guidance 40 primary and secondary work elements that are captured under 6 generic headline themes, which is to keep a property in good state of repair, safe and secure, adequately heated, fuel efficient and well insulated, containing up-to-date kitchens and bathrooms, located in an attractive, safe environment, and as far as possible, meet the specific requirements of householders. To achieve compliance, we've got to complete all 40 of the elements that I outlined earlier on, which forms a part of the 6 themes for compliance. And when those works are completed and performing as intended, we can then say that they are compliant. Now, the way that we measure it is that our capital programs have various work streams: re-roofing, re-rendering, kitchens and bathrooms. Every job, every work program will have a completion certificate that will be issued on completion of those works. We then put it into our database, which is the basis of our statistical returns to Welsh Government to ensure that we are reflecting properly the works that we completed and making sure that our compliance records are accurate. Our records then independently validated by external consultants as part of condition surveys that are carried out every 5 years. So it's not just us saying that our properties are compliant, we will have third-party validation of that as well. Now, what the standard also recognises, it's not always possible to bring properties up to standard. And the guidance has introduced this rather curious term of having an acceptable fail. So if we can't make the element of work compliant, it is deemed an acceptable fail. The permitted reasons for acceptable fail is tenant choice. So if a resident doesn't want to participate in a work programme, they're not compelled to, and that's an acceptable fail. There could be physical constraints of the site. There could be the topography of the site that we wouldn't be able to provide level gardens in Townhill or Mayhill, for example. There could be an issue of cost. It could be uneconomic to carry out works. And the final permitted reason for an acceptable fail is about programme timing. If a property does have an acceptable fail, we will always still carry on repairing and maintaining that property to ensure that we keep it in the very best condition that we can. So part 4 of the report is outlining what we've achieved in the last 21 months. What progress have we made in the last 21 months, April 19 to December 2020? And we've increased compliance by 2,338 properties from 5,415 to 7,753. This represents a 17% increase in overall compliance from the last time we reported, when it was 40%. We're now up to 57%. Acceptable fails are 5,795, but of those 5,795, 3,165 represent residents' choice. They haven't wished to participate in the scheme. So we recognise that while tenants don't want to participate in our scheme, we will always be reporting acceptable fails as a part of our statistical returns. And we are calculating on the current data that we have that we're not going to ever get above 77% compliance because of the ratio of acceptable fails. And this is very much in line with the findings of other local authorities and their statistical returns that they've returned to Welsh Government as well. In section 4, we've got a table which looks at the individual standard elements, roofing, windows, etc. In the left-hand column, and the 2 other columns setting out the number of properties fully compliant and those with acceptable fail. And the first 3, roofing, windows, doors, you can see there's very high level of full compliance. If you look at the next 2 items, kitchens and bathrooms, this is where you start to see why we've got the level of acceptable fail that we have. And there are 1,900 and 2,600 respectively of kitchens and bathrooms that are acceptable fails. Now, by and large, this is because residents have invested their own private money into improving their kitchens and bathrooms and have declined to participate in our programme. The next one, which has got a high acceptable fail level, is energy rating. This is the SAP rating that we've got to comply with, and the guidance says that we've got to reach SAP level of 65 minimum, which is EPC Band D. Now, at the moment, we've got 1,700 properties that haven't reach that level, but we are confident that that number is going to continue to diminish, which will help our overall compliance. The final item, and the one with the greatest number of acceptable fail, is the garden programme. Now, this is in part because we didn't start this programme till 2016, and so it's skewed to the tail end of our compliance programme. But we are going about it at scale and pace, and we've actually completed something in the order of 3,500 properties in the last 21 months, to give you some sort of context about how that programme is actually rolling out. So the reasons for the compliance, the extra compliance in this 21-month period, is not least due to the £70 million plus additional investment that we put into the capital programme. During that time, we've completed about 2,000 kitchens and bathrooms. We've completed about 3,500 garden improvements, and we completed over 500 enveloping jobs that include re-roofing, re-rendering, windows, and improving the thermal insulation of all the external fabric of buildings. We've also increased the number of the results of our EPCs, the energy rating. We have an officer working almost full time looking at every single EPC report to ensure that it captures all the works that we've carried out, because the EPCs are carried out by a third-party provider who may not be aware of the scope of the work that we've carried out. So we've got an officer that's going through the best part of 10,000 EPCs to ensure they properly reflect the investment that we've put into the property. So for that reason, again, we've increased our compliance on the energy rating line, and will continue to. On to point 5 of the report, and I think it's important when we're looking at Swansea, I think it's important to look at it in the context of the national picture. And of the 11 retained housing authorities in Wales, 7 of them have already announced that they've achieved Welsh Housing Quality Standard compliance. Now, there's a table below that shows the level of compliance and the percentage of acceptable fails, and it varies quite widely. One of the authorities, for example, has got 53% acceptable fails, while 1 or 2 others are reporting 10%. But if you take the average of the 7 authorities that have announced that they've achieved compliance, they have an average of about 26.5% of acceptable fails in their statistical returns that they make to Welsh Government. So what we anticipate we will have when we finish this compliance programme is going to be very much in line with the national picture of the retained local authorities. Although this next part of my presentation isn't actually included in the report, I thought it'd be useful just to give you some idea of what we anticipate completing by the end of this compliance deadline at the end of this calendar year. We've got another 49 million pounds in our capital repair programme to deliver more kitchens, bathrooms, garden improvements, rewires, improve energy efficiency, re-roofing, and all the other work elements that we work on. So we are confident that we are going to increase our total compliance by at least a further 13% to take it to 70% or above. Obviously, this is dependent on COVID, and if we have any further lockdowns or restrictions, that could impact on that. But if we have no further problems in that respect, we are anticipating we will be at 70% or above with our total compliance. That will mean that we'll have anticipated acceptable fail levels of about 30%, of which we think 23% will be on the basis of tenants not wishing to participate. So it's tenant choice not to participate in one or more of our improvement schemes. And just one final thing about looking forward, it's important to highlight that the Welsh Housing Quality Standard doesn't end at the end of the compliance phase, the end of the calendar year. We then enter into the maintenance phase of the Welsh Housing Quality Standard, and we do know that the maintenance phase is going to be, the responsibilities are going to be increased. Welsh Government are going to add a decarbonisation and fire safety requirements to maintaining properties at the current standards. So basically what I'm trying to say is the programme will continue indefinitely, and we will carry on monitoring our progress accordingly, reporting to Welsh Government, reporting to Scrutiny and to Council to tell everybody how we're progressing, and of course our main stakeholders who are our residents. We report to them through a number of means, through publications, websites, and meetings that we have with residents. So the report conclusions are over £70 million worth of investment the last 21 months has seen a 17% increase in compliance. So 57% of the total stock of 13,548 is now fully compliant. The programme, the 2020 programme, has been impacted by COVID. The deadline has been increased by 1 year to the end of this calendar year. Compliance levels will continue to increase, and we project it will be over 70% by the end of the compliance phase. Acceptable fails will continue to reduce, but they will always form a part of the statistical returns that we report to Welsh Government and also to Scrutiny, because they will always be there, because if residents don't want to participate, they will be acceptable fails. And our level of compliance and acceptable fails are going to be comparable with other local authorities in Wales. We aren't going to be hugely different. So just to finish up with a wider summary, the council's invested heavily to bring council homes up to the Welsh Housing Quality Standard. The standard contributes to the council's vision and priorities for Swansea, and it also reflects wider national agendas. The investment has provided a really positive impact on the local economy. It's directly benefited tenants in relation to safety, security, warmer homes, and positive impact on health. Compliance will increase by the end to the end of 2021 as our programme rolls out. Acceptable fails will reduce, but will always form a part of our statistical returns. We will continue to monitor and report on our programme progress to Scrutiny and also to Welsh Government. And post 2022, we will be going into the maintenance phase that's going to include the new programme of decarbonisation and fire safety duties that are going to be added to our statutory requirements.
Thank you very much, Dave. Mark, do you want to add anything before we ask questions?
Yes, Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And if I can firstly thank Dave for his comprehensive overview of the report there. Sorry, there's a bit of feedback on the line. There we go, is that better? Yeah, good.
Can we ask people to mute?
Thank you very much. Yes, so thank you, Dave, for the overview of the programme there, and also to Dave's team as well in terms of I suppose the monitoring and the survey programmes, our partnership working with building services and private contractors here. Can't underestimate that really in terms of the scale of this programme which we've undertaken and are now coming towards the end of. So there is some significant some achievements to be recognised there, and I would hope that those are visible for everyone to see, really, in terms of the if you take a walk around any of our estate areas. COVID did its best, certainly, to delay us, but even then we managed to keep the programme running, albeit with some restrictions, and that, with Welsh Government support by way of the extended deadline, there is some significant momentum in the programme now, also as we come towards the end. Compare well with other local authorities as well, albeit we're a much larger landlord than some of them as well. So again, the sense of scale around the programme can't be underestimated in that regard, really. I think there's a very clear message from Dave there at the end that this isn't the end of us investing in council housing in Swansea. This is very much coming towards the end of the investment programme for the Welsh Housing Quality Standard, but our ambitions as a landlord are always to continue that improvement, and certainly Welsh Government share that ambition as well. So going into the next, or into this current decade and beyond, we will see even larger investment, we suspect, in continued improvement in the properties themselves, and also in our residents and their ability to pay bills, and for us to be able to help reduce fuel poverty levels, for example. So I think that can't be underestimated there. So I think the message is very much it doesn't stop here, and we will, as we go into the maintenance phase, we will be doing everything possible to continue the investment in the stock and the important work which has been done through the Welsh Housing Quality Standard. So I just wanted to sum up at that point. So thank you, Chair.
You're muted, Chris.
I'm sorry about that. Councillor Peter Black, first question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things about acceptable fails. Dave, did you say 77% is the ceiling you think you can reach in terms of fully compliant, or is it 67%? I wasn't quite catch that.
My view is based on the current data sets that we've got and the amount of acceptable fail based on tenants' requirements or tenants' requests. I can't see how we can get above a 77% level of compliance. But it's obviously something that we would continue to work on, and some other local authorities are reporting that they only have acceptable fails of 10%. Quite how they achieve that, I'm really not quite sure. But if we get near that 77 to 80% of complete compliance, I think we will be doing very, very well as an authority. If we're going to be recording and making our returns completely open and transparent.
Okay, I suspect it's to do with the age of the stock as well. Might help, might it, in some authorities achieving lower acceptable fails. So we basically got just under 20% to catch up on to reach that ceiling level, and you're thinking we'll get to about 70% by the end of the period. So
that is correct.
Is there a program then to get that extra 7%, or is that just really ongoing over the period of time?
That will be the program that will continue, and that number will diminish down to about that 77% level. We will always have this proportion of acceptable fail on the grounds that it's tenant choice not to participate in one or more of the schemes. And please bear in mind, there are 40 elements to this standard, and so all we require is one of the elements not to be the tenant not to participate in, and we've got an acceptable fail on our hands. So 99% of the work could be completed, and it's just a very small proportion that makes it an acceptable fail as opposed to a compliant property.
Is there a number of acceptable fails that you can on any single property for when it becomes an unacceptable fail? I mean, can you have say 2 or 3 in one property and it's still acceptable, and 4 is not acceptable?
There will certainly be some properties that will have more than one or two acceptable fail elements in it,
Right.
And we'll be doing everything that we can to reduce each of those elements down to as few number as we possibly can, and that's really a part of our focus, and where we scope in to try and tackle those properties as soon as we possibly can.
Okay, just one last question, Chair. Sorry, on 5.3, you've got the table of the 7 compliance authorities, though frankly, if you've got 49% acceptable fails, I can't see 45% and 53% acceptable fails. I'm struggling to see how they're compliant. But do we have a similar table for the other 3, which apart from Swansea?
No, these are the ones. We've managed to get this from the statistical section in Welsh Government, but they're only reporting currently on those ones that have declared compliance.
Right. Okay.
So
So
if you
we can't compare ourselves against the non-compliant authorities.
Correct. Not at this point in time, but at the end of this period, at the end of this calendar year. And when those statistics are reported back to Welsh Government next August, then I suspect we will be able to tease that sort of information out.
I think it would have been quite useful to have that information because it gives us a marker as to how we're doing against the other non-compliant authorities. But there we go. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Dave.
Right, Councillor Mary Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've got 3 questions, if I can remember all 3. The first one is to do with the table about the acceptable fail. And even though it's a low one, I was quite concerned because you mentioned then about the ongoing duty when you're in the maintenance fail about fire safety. Why is it that there's properties with acceptable fail? There are 8 of them, because surely it should be 0. Do you want me to answer all my questions? Ask all my questions and answer them all? Right. Okay. Yeah. The next one. Sorry, I don't have any housing stock in my ward, so others will probably know the answer, but I would like to know it anyway. We've spent an awful lot of money now doing these houses up and homes up. What part of the tenants got to play in this? Because gardens I'm thinking of, you can see from the outside straight away if they've been maintained or not. Front doors bashed in, windows, what have you. Do they have to pay for it to be then reinstated? Or, you know, what does the council, what powers would we have to actually get them to comply? And I'm trying to remember the third one. Oh, yes. You said when you go to the maintenance phase, you'll be reporting up until you get to maintenance. How are you reporting back to us with the maintenance phase? Is it going to come back through scrutiny or through cabinet, or what? Which means are we going to have any kind of update that we would need to know that people are generally maintaining their properties? Thank you.
Dave, do you want to answer those questions? I know, Andrea, you've got your hand up as well. Do you want to go first?
Yes, please. Perhaps if I can come in first and then hand over to Dave for anything, to pick anything up that I might have left out. So in terms of the smoke alarms, Mary, actually the updated number on that is now 6, not 8. And what we will continue to do is to try and reduce that number to 0. So it's just the update currently. It doesn't mean that it's going to remain at 6. So we will be continually working on that. In terms of the external facilities, I think it's important that we separate the Welsh Housing Quality Standard works from the condition of people's gardens. So, you know, they're 2 separate things. So, you know, work on external facilities is about making the external grounds safe. So that could be improving paths, improving steps, improving access to the rotary line. The condition of gardens being overgrown is a separate issue that we do address through our neighbourhood support officers that speak to tenants. And if there is a reason, for example, if somebody's got a disability or they're of a certain age and they're unable to keep their gardens at a certain condition, we can help with our caretaker scheme for that. If it's an issue of fly tipping, as an example, then we will write to the tenant and expect them to remove the fly tipping. If they don't, then we do have powers to remove it and recharge them. So I think that it's important to make sure those issues are looked at separately. And in terms of reporting, even though the deadline will have passed, I'm sure we'd be happy to report and give an update in terms of the ongoing maintenance and come back to scrutiny at a future date regarding that. Dave, I don't know if I've missed anything, but please pick it up if I have.
No, I think you've covered quite a lot. Can I just add to the smoke alarms is that just to be clear on this, it means we do have smoke alarms in each property. It's just that we haven't been able to get access into the property to actually make sure it's operating properly. We do have a small hardened group of residents who find it difficult to engage with us to allow us access to maintain boilers and also to check on smoke alarms and the like. And these are ones that we know they're fitted, but we haven't had an opportunity to get in to be able to see if they're safe and compliant. But we will pick those ones up if we don't engage with the resident as a part of the enforcement measures that we can take as a part of gas safety and maintaining boilers. So we will capture them eventually. And in terms of reporting in the future, we will most certainly be reporting to Scrutiny, to Council and to Welsh Government on every year's capital programme that we carry out, that we're maintaining the level of compliance and how things vary over the period. And I suspect the reporting will be wider because of the additional decarbonisation duties that are going to be placed on us. So I think there's going to be a raft of compliance reporting going forward, not just looking at the elements that are currently within the Welsh Housing Quality Standard.
Sorry, can I clarify? I think garden probably was a bad example. I did say about a damaged front door, or if you've got to know that the kitchens, bathrooms, etc. were damaged, what powers will we have then to ensure that they are reinstated or whatever it is that needs to be done?
Dave?
Well, we can recover monies if there is malicious damage. We can recharge tenants. And if they don't have the money to pay us, it just basically remains as a debt on their account. But if there is malicious damage, we do our best to recover the cost to repair or replace those items.
Okay. Phil Downing. Councillor Phil Downing, sorry.
Trying to get off mute. Thank you very much, Chair. At the beginning, when Andrea kicked off, when she said about at the start of the pandemic, work slowed down, and Fed was David echoed what she said. The question I've got is, during that time, did we take full advantage to bring our voids down to zero? And secondly, as well as on the gardens, a couple of things. One, I did ask if I could have a list of what gardens we had planned to do in Pontarddulais. I still haven't had a reply to that. And staying on the gardens, if we think somebody hasn't got a path, like you said, and the perimeter fence, and we think it needs doing, especially a path on safety. But if the tenant refuses us to come in, then that's a void. Sorry, that's an acceptable fail. Although we may think it's unsafe because either the path is broken up, but if they won't let us in, there's nothing we can do about it. Is that correct? And the other thing on acceptable fails, Dave, you did say one of them was timing. Could you expand on that? I didn't catch. If you did explain what timing was, I didn't catch it. I think that's about. Yeah, the other things I was going to ask, same as everybody else, on acceptable fails, but they have been answered. It's just those things now about the voids, which is one of my favourite topics, and the gardens. Thanks.
Andrea, Councillor Lewis, you've got your hand up.
Yes, if I can just come in very briefly, Councillor Downing is absolutely right. When we did find it difficult to carry out internal works, we then concentrated our efforts on bringing voids back into use. because obviously it's safer to work in an empty property at that point. So that's exactly what we did. In terms of the list for Pontedilais, I'm sure Mark or Dave will comment on that. But you're absolutely right. If somebody refuses to have the work done, even if we think a path is crooked and uneven and unsafe, it's the tenant's choice. And throughout this process, that's what we have respected. And so we wouldn't force the works upon a tenant. If they chose to decline, then that would be an acceptable fail. But I'll hand over to Mark and Dave to respond to your other questions, Councillor Downing.
Dave?
Picking up on the addresses, apologies if you've asked for that, Councillor Downing, and it haven't been provided. I will provide you with a full list of addresses for Pontedilais and when we're likely to be procuring the work and carrying out the work in due course. Timing for acceptable fail. We may technically have, let's say, roofs that have expired. There's a notional date for replacing a roof. Let's say it's 2019, but we've got it in our work programme to carry out this year. So it can be an acceptable fail on the basis of timing, because when we're proposing to invest the money and carry out the work, it may be that it is technically outside the time it's come out of compliance. But I've got to be, let me just expand on that a little bit further. We have roofs that we give a notional life of 60 years to, okay? It doesn't mean on the day that it comes out of technical compliance that roof is going to fail. It just means that we want to now get into a position to replace that roof so that day-to-day repairs don't become uneconomic. It's just a planned maintenance principle that we engage. So in terms of the timing, it is simply, it may technically be out of compliance, an element may be out of compliance, but it will be in our work programme to pick it up in due course. So it's an acceptable fail on that basis.
Right, thank you for that. And I'll wait for, can I, on the list that you're going to give me, can you also give me if there are any acceptable fails as well on that? Because people will complain afterwards to say they haven't had anything done. We refused it.
Sorry, we won't know if they're an acceptable fail until we start the programme, and if we have people who don't allow us access, then we'll be able to find that out. So in terms of telling you now about the acceptable fails for that garden programme, I won't be able to do that until that specific project is completed, and then we can look statistically to see how many didn't participate.
I've got one more, Chair, that I forgot, and I'm on the page on my laptop. On 4.3, I would have liked to have seen another line in there, because you got properties fully compliant, 13,201 roofing, but that's not how many roofs have been completed. It would have been nice to see another column in there of the work we've actually done.
It so happens I've got that information, and I think, just bear with me a second. The outcomes of our past deliveries. We've delivered new roofs, weatherboards, rainwater good systems, 6,496 properties in the last 18 years. External wall insulation systems, 5,934. External doors to 11,973 properties. 9,611 kitchens that we've carried out since 2013. 9,527 bathrooms. 13,052 new high-performance gas boilers, and 9,075 electrical rewires. Now, that's not exhaustive, but it sort of highlights a lot of the major work streams, that the numbers of properties that we've delivered on during this programme.
Thank you. I am got another question, Chair, but can I make one small comment that I was lucky enough to visit one of our void properties after our workforce had put in the bathrooms, back kitchens, and everything else that they were supposed to put in. And I got to be honest, it was done to a very high standard. As you know, I was in contracting at one time, and they had done an excellent job. Whether it was just the house I visited, but yeah, I got to be honest, it was up to a very high standard.
Andrea and Dave, to make it equitable, what Councillor Downing is asking for, could we do the same for all councillors that got housing stock, so that we're not, separating anybody else out and say, if there's housing stock in your ward and this is what's done and this is what hasn't been done. And I think that makes it fair across the whole patch then. Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I know Mark wants to come in, but if I could just clarify, we did make a commitment to update ward councillors when works are being carried out in their ward. I think this may just be an oversight in Pontarddulais, and apologies to Phil for that. But I know as a Morriston councillor, I am kept abreast of any works which are carried out on the council estates within my ward. So, but we'll take that on board, Councillor Hawley. Thank you.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Same point from me, really. We refer to it as the Blue Book, because back in the days where we used to print things out, there is a programme of works which is agreed annually, and that is circulated to all ward members as to what is upcoming, as it were. But absolutely, yes, we'll clarify that individual point, not a problem at all.
Okay, I've got three other members. Councillor Linda James, then Jeff Jones, then Irene Mann. Councillor Linda James.
There we are. I've just got two questions. First of all, when tenants have put in their own bathrooms or kitchens, is it automatically considered an acceptable fail, or do you actually check what they have put in to see if it meets the council standards? And is it acceptable?
Can I just comment on that, if that's okay, Chair? Thank you, Councillor James, for the question. It's not about whether they reach the standard. It's about whether they are happy to accept works done to their property. So many tenants will have upgraded their kitchens and bathrooms, and they don't want us to come in, therefore, and upgrade again. So it's not about them actually reaching the standard, because there may be a certain number of cupboards. It's quite exacting, the standard. So it's about respecting the fact that they don't want us to change what they have invested in their own property, essentially, by upgrading their kitchen or bathroom. I'm sure Dave will come in with more technical response than I have, but essentially it's more about respecting the fact that they refuse in the works because they're happy with what they've done to their property.
Yes, I can understand that, but it just seems that we're marking them automatically as a fail, when maybe they're not failing. They could even be actually higher quality than what the council's putting in.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jane. Sorry, if I can respond to that. We saw clarification from Welsh Government on this point, and they've advised us that we can start looking at the properties where residents have put their own financial investment in. And it's part of what we're proposing to do, is to review those properties, and if they're technically compliant, we are going to add them as compliant kitchens, because at the moment we're kind of disadvantaging ourselves by not measuring those. So it's a part of a piece of work that we're going to do, is to review all of those properties, send an officer to see if they meet compliance, and if we could just add one or two small items to make it technically compliant, if it's just missing, let's say, an extractor fan, that we can offer that to the resident and legitimately bring it up to a compliant state. So Yes, it at the moment we're not measuring those ones as compliant when they actually might be, but we intend to do that going forward, having confirmed that with Welsh Government in the last few months.
Thank you. My other question is, we provide smoke alarms. Do we provide carbon monoxide monitors where there's gas in the house?
Yes, yes, we do. It's a dual function carbon monoxide oblique smoke alarm that we fit in, and they're mains hardwired devices so that they would measure both things, smoke and carbon dioxide.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Jones, Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yeah, a few things really. Yeah, Dave, you started actually saying housing across Wales. Well, we're talking about social housing across Wales. We're not talking about the private sector, and we're not talking about the third-party sector as well. I assume they've got measurements themselves to, shall we say, control. This acceptable fail seems to be a bit of a moving target when you look at some other local authorities as well. But, is there a target that everybody should reach at the end of the day? And is there a penalty in place for local authorities that don't achieve that target, if I can call it? Another thing, there must be quite a large procurement exercise actually taking place with regards to, shall we say, various stages and so on. Is there an expected length of a procurement contract in place? Because, kitchens are updated, or we'll have a gas boiler changed and so on. How flexible are those procurement contracts at the end of the day? And the last part, really, with regards to, I can't remember the amount we actually, or you said with regard to expending money on improvements, but with regards to rental income, does that cover the expenditure at the end of the day? That's it.
Okay. Dave?
Okay. The first point about what does it actually capture, you're right, it is just social housing, but it is local authority, retained local authority, so there's 11 of those. There's 11 arm's length almos that's where the local authority's housing stock has been transferred to a housing association status. They are captured by that, and all the RSLs, all the housing associations, they're all measured as a part of this Welsh Housing Quality Standard. So there's 231,000 social houses in Wales that the Welsh Housing Quality Standard covers. So those are the ones that are measured. The private housing stock and private rental stock isn't measured as a part of this. The second point about procurement, we procure work. There's wherever possible, where we can prove best value, we try to deliver our work through our in-house contractor building services. They have to go through a competitive tendering process, a benchmarking process to ensure they deliver us value for money. And so they undertake a significant proportion of all the repairs that we carry out on our housing stock. And as Councillor Downing highlighted earlier on, in all honesty, they provide us with a very good service and they build to a good standard. So wherever possible, we are always going to support our in-house contractor as long as they're competitive in terms of the cost of delivery. The other element of the work that we deliver, yes, they are external contractors, and some of the programs are so big, we have to have framework contractors, frameworks in place that can be for 2, 3, 4 years. And so the kitchen and bathroom program, as an example, which has been a program of over £100 million, we have had 4 framework contractors delivering that program and our in-house contractor as well. So really it's horses for courses. Where we've got huge programs to deliver, they're very often delivered by long-term frameworks. We also procure every contract that we have is procured in a way that there's a competitive tendering process that's in place to make sure that we get value for money as a local authority. The last point that you made, rental income, will it cover the cost of the programme? Well, I think I'm certainly no financial expert, but I think it's fair to say that we've had to borrow money as part of this programme, and we will need to continue to borrow money. And with the decarbonisation programme on the horizon, we would have to borrow an awful lot more money as well. We can't really be specific about how much because we don't know how big the programme is going to be yet. But to answer your question, the rental income, we have had to borrow money to support the programme that we have delivered. And I think that's been to the tune of something in the region of about 200 million.
Andrea, you got your hand up? Sorry, Councillor Lewis.
No
Oh,
problem.
Andrea, sorry.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, no, just to add to Dave's response, really, in terms of how we fund the WHQS, just to give assurance that it is covered entirely by the HRA. You know, obviously it is, to point out the obvious, it's illegal to use general funding to finance any HRA works.
Yep.
But what we do, as I know Councillor Jones will be aware, on an annual basis, we report the capital and revenue financial reports yearly, and all the detail and all the investment and all the borrowing is covered in those reports. And if there are any further questions or concerns about that, you're more than welcome, you know, to come to me at any point. But just to give assurance, the HRA covers all of it.
Okay. Right. A final question is Councillor Irene Mann. Councillor Mann, you have your hand up. Irene? I think she's disappeared for the time being. Oh, right. If Councillor Mann. No. Well, obviously, I think we've lost her in the ether somewhere. I don't know what's happened. Oh, hang on, the hand has gone down now. Right. Okay. Then obviously, I think we've answered every question that you've been put to you, and if that issue about the telling people in their wards what's happening, apart from that, can I thank the three of you for coming along this morning to answer the questions. I'm sure, to take up Councillor Mary Jones's point, that when we start the maintenance programme, we will then actually come back to a scrutiny function on that as well, as the housing quality, as the housing stock at Swansea City Council is a very important part of our function. Well, thank you very much for coming again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holly, and my thanks to the committee as well.
Okay. Right, thank you all. Now, the next item on the agenda is the annual review.
Oh, hello. So sorry, I'm back now. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can now.
Thank you. No, just fell out. 2 seconds, I'll be. I just wanted to reiterate the comments made by Councillor Lewis at the beginning of the meeting. I've mediated and worked with, tenants, worked with housing managers and worked with the officers responsible for housing, and I have nothing but praise. We have some very challenging tenants, and there's always professionalism, good humour demonstrated by all the officers, and particularly building services, who are absolutely wonderful. That's all I wanted to say, really. And thank you, Councillor Lewis, for all the work you've been doing with the housing project.
Thank you, Irene.
Thank you, Councillor Hawley. If I could just respond to Councillor Mann,
Yeah.
those comments are very gratefully received, and I'm sure Dave will be happy to feed
Oh,
this
Dave
back.
Richards is fabulous. Dave
People
Richards
are
is
often very quick to criticise, but it's not often, you know, they express gratitude, and we've got excellent teams, which I'm very proud of, actually. So thank you so much for recognising that.
I've been in housing situations where tenants can be very challenging. Sat with them so the building services can be in the accommodation, and they've all been, and their patience is unparalleled. Thank you. So sorry this fell out. I'm not very good with these phone things, but absolutely wonderful service you're providing from my experience in the uplands.
Okay, thank you.
Many thanks.
We'll leave the committee now, if that's okay, Councillor Hawley.
Yeah, I'm sure that Dave and you all appreciated that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. The next item on the agenda is the annual review. Any comments?
No.
Oh, no comments. There's going to be a further discussion with the head of the Bridgemount Harbour, but with concern about a couple of issues around the annual review, and also be going to talk to Councillor Black as chair of the panel on a number of issues. But I'll report back to committee as soon as I got any more information on that. Okay. That's item 7 on the agenda, and item 8 are the letters. Everybody happy with them?
Yeah.
Okay. If that's all, can I thank you all for your attendance this morning, and hope you have a very pleasant day and stay out of the rain.
Thank you, Chair.